Hello everyone, this is Sam. I am back for a new video on the GW2 economy, and to start off this year with a sad note, I am here with a review of what has happened over the last few months and why I think that right now GW2's economy is bad and how it reflects some poor marketing decisions. Now, before I get started on how I think the marketing decision has this bad an impact on the GW2 economy, I would like first to point out that Ironnet has made a move to come out to us and tell us some stuff about the marketing decisions, and there is going to be a live stream on Friday, that is to say in 2 days, for you guys to know where they stand and what they plan to do. Now, for my own video, I am going to be dividing my appreciation of the current situation into two parts and then moving on to try and see what could be changed or what could solve the current predicament. First of all, I would like to talk about the fact that the economy is currently in shambles. While this statement is harsh and probably debatable, it is pretty obvious that the economy isn't in its best spot. It is what is commonly referred to as a buyer's economy, where everything is cheap and thus benefits the people buying items with the goal of making something off of them. A very easy way for me to show this would be going to the main page of GW2BLTC.com and showing you how low priced some of the most common commodities are. As you can see, if I pick up the top sold items, we can see that the price of mithril ore, silk scrap, thick leather sections, and of course elderwood logs as well as obviously the globes of ectoplasm, is particularly low. Now, what this means today is that if you're a player with some gold and want to buy materials to craft a legendary, some gear, some weapons, you're in a very good spot. Globe of ectoplasms are below 20 silver, and even the usually most expensive tier 6 materials, such as powerful blood, are clearly oversupplied. But to the player with little wealth, what is there? They cannot just up and do like before, where playing the game normally would generate sufficient amount of gold or materials to sell. Overturned events such as Paladin or Easton have widened the gaps between normal gameplay income and intense farming. PoF as a whole was conceived with little to no concern for the fate of the economy. I would argue that Ironnet believed the player base would be much larger on release, which is what led to the current situation. It is overly easy to obtain crafting materials by doing events compared to the relative lack of things for them, such as usually crafting. As such, we found ourselves in a situation where a wholly mature player base, in terms of progression in the games, is farming items of gradually lowering value in an economy where they can't find a buyer. The reason behind that is that we do not have enough players. Now, that is the second point I want to talk about. We have a clear lack of fresh blood. As previously stated, one of the causes of this lack of things is the player base being too mature in terms of account progression. If you're a new player starting Guild Wars 2, you will want to create your character and you will want to start leveling it. Then you will realize that you need to gear yourself. So either you're going to be crafting your own armor, you're going to be using drops that the game throws at you, or you're going to be buying it from the trading post. In two of these three cases, you're going to be using materials, either yourself or materials that were processed by another person, in order to acquire gear. This is usually a decent sink for most situations that the game could throw at us, such as a regular event that turns out to be a good farm fest. However, right now we're not in this situation. What I mean by that is rather simple. Someone who has already gotten their gear and progressed to the point where they can do fractals or raids has no use for what Path of Fire threw at us like candy at a carnival. The crafting materials are mostly used by people starting a game or decking their accounts out. Of course, outliers exist, the people that constantly improve their accounts, gear up new characters or some alts, but usually when you're getting to that point you have enough currency to simply get the gear through other means. That means that we don't have a sink for the huge faucets that Path of Fire gave us. This leads to another issue. Currencies, oh my sweet summer child. Path of Fire brought us new currencies when we already had some from the Heart of Thorns area that were dubious in their validity. Currencies are a major issue in GW2, at least from an economical point of view, as they allow for a total bypassing of the crafting processes which are vital for the economy's health. Basically, if you are using currencies, you do not have to use any material in some cases, such as, for example, buying gear with raid currency, or you only have to use some specific materials and not of all the tiers, for example, when you buy gear from fractals. For each piece of ascended gear you acquire through use of currencies, it is hundreds of materials that go unused or without a sink. Just let that sink in. With no Path of Fire induced sink, the fact that Path of Fire has its own currency, used mostly for cosmetics, and the huge faucets of materials that we have seen, it is only natural that the trading post would be getting flooded, just like the players' inventories. Now, this is gonna lead me to the second point of this video, that we are clearly needing an economist. The first thing that needs to be said about that is that John Smith is gone. As we already saw earlier, the economy is in a poor state. But what about the person who was supposed to safeguard us from this kind of issue? It should have been relatively easy for him to introduce a new sink when we were having issues in order to make sure that the game remains in a state that doesn't drive part of the population away. We can think of stuff like the Bazaar of the Four Winds, which was a very good way to get materials out of the economy in the times of dire need. Because, at the moment, it is pretty clear that nobody's managing it. The high value items are going down the drain, and the constant re-releasing of exclusive in the Black Lion chest or other loot box systems is proving detrimental to the general part of the economy. I remember people celebrating at first when few skins came back or when molten gem packs hit rock bottom, but right now, dice for example are getting this treatment and people see their account values that they work for dwindle. This situation has started since April 2017, when John Smith left our internet, but we have truly started seeing the impact of these lack of fixes in the last few months. The need for cash has turned the current marketing team to force gem store updates, and this is probably the worst thing that can happen to the GW2 economy. We have seen the mounts primarily used as cash grab, but the updates that the Black Lion chest has gotten recently point towards a trend of putting a lot of exclusives behind the RNG wall, now balanced by the statuette, of course, in order to get people to spend without giving a second thought. This is really just a way of patching holes in the budget that were dug because Path of Fire didn't meet the expectations in terms of player base, or maybe just because the recent marketing has not been sufficient to bring new players in. The issue is that this can only work at time. At some point, the whales are going to stop whaling, and this will indeed happen, and at the moment this happens, we are truly gonna be at our wits' ends. Now, of course, this wouldn't be a good video if I wouldn't try to offer some sort of insight on potential solutions. The solutions that I see are two. The first one would be that someone at Bayonet arises and fixes the economy. This would definitely be the best outcome, albeit a pretty unlikely one. Also, this would probably piss off some part of the player base that has so far been very vocal on Reddit and the forums, and who says that a lot of items are overpriced. The release of store patches usually helps sink some materials out of the economy. That only depends on how many players want the stuff that the patches will bring, but it is a good way to fix some of our issues. Now, of course, the player base will need to realize that it is for their own good. For example, if the ectoplasm were to recover part of its previous value, it would definitely be good for the major part of the player base. The second point would be that nothing is done. The game will literally bleed players, no other way around it. You cannot expect an MMO where the endgame is pretty much fashion while staying to retain population if everyone can afford it. For example, if I am going to be working for 2 months to build a legendary, that then, a few months later, player comes in and the materials are so cheap that it only costs him a fraction of the price and then he walks around fully decked out, it just doesn't stick with the idea of fashion being the endgame. And if the endgame is mostly affordable through the use of real-life currency or through farming yourself to exhaustion in order to exchange your in-game currency for gems, then the game will just not retain its population. This model will only work as long as people still have content that they are interested in, and the content drought that we had in HOT is slowly but surely starting to poke its nose at us again. Now, I do not want to sound like this is the end of the game or that this is a situation which is bad for people, but you can probably see from the lack of updates on the economy part of the video on this channel that right now it is just not the best moment to play. Of course, there are still good ways to make gold, of course crafting is still profitable, of course you can still have fun flipping, but investing has been much less fun in the last few months. Anyways, before ending this video, I'm going to try to show you what I mean by the economy being in shambles. For that, we're going to be going back to the view of GW2 BLTC and having a look at the globs of ectoplasms. So there we go, that is a view of the ectoplasm price versus volume versus sold offers bought bids over the last almost 2 years, so from July 2016 to January 2018. What this allows us to see is the highest and the lowest point that the globs of ectoplasms have been at. We had them over 50 silver, and now they are under 20 silver. What has happened? We can pretty much have a look at it and then determine what were the issues. So here we had a lot of demand for ectos, we had people needing to probably gear themselves a bit, people coming back, people playing the game, and we didn't have any good ways to acquire a lot of ectos. Here were the Auric Basin farms that were going pretty strong, to be fair, and the fix to the Auric Basin farm. Then you can see that the ectos remained at a stable price of 30 to 35 silver, which in my opinion was probably the best spot they could be at. 30 to 35 silver means that ectoplasms are both valuable to get and sell, and both interesting enough to hold on to craft your own materials. This is a price at which I think a lot of people had what they were looking for. Then here is the release of GW2 Path of Fire and the unidentified gears and a lot of rares that got thrown at us. You can see the price dwindling to 23 silver. This is terrible. And then you can see another break at the end of November with the Eastern patch that came with Daybreak. And there is where it goes to the worst. So this is the clear image of nothing being done to fix the prices. Like, this is where John Smith left after fixing Auric Basin. John Smith leaves, it's in a good spot. We get Path of Fire, we get Daybreak. Now it's all down to the drain. Of course, I'm not saying that Ironet needs to hire someone, I'm not throwing blame at anyone. I'm just saying that right now the economy is definitely not good for people who want either to make gold by playing the game normally, or for people who would like to have some value remain on their accounts. I'm just taking the global ectoplasm as evidence for this, but any material could be taken. Path of Fire has awarded us with a shit ton of crafting materials. We do not have the population nor the sinks to absorb all of that. Hopefully something is going to be done within the next few months. Otherwise, we're going to keep seeing that downwards trend in the value of crafting materials. And at some point, we're just going to get in an economy where gold is the only thing that has worth. So obviously, raiders and TP players, as well as people who do their dailies and fractals, are going to be the ones retaining the wealth. I'm not quite sure that this is where we want to go, but this is where we seem to be going. Now, that is going to be the end of the video. I have talked for quite a long time. I have made a few points that were good, some that were a bit less good, and I hope that you guys are going to be bringing some conversation in the comment section, so that we can see what points can be debated, where we can go within the communication with our internet and between us. And well, I am going to be doing a little plug at the end of the video. I'm going to be making a few more, well, obviously a lot more, economy related videos. I'm going to be going back over some guides that I wanted to do for a long time, because right now work is a little bit more calm, so I have more time to be productive. And as such, if you wish to support the channel, you have the possibility to buy GW2 Path of Fire to get another alt account ready for raiding with the link in the description. You have the possibility to support me directly via Patreon, and you also have the possibility to just be a normal user, pay free to play, and just pretty much put a like on the video, put a comment under the description. Just a little something to be more interactive with you. And now, I wish every single one of you some happy trading and hopefully to get rich despite the economy.